So, like I was saying, this is about the 1619 Project, a publication that was put out by the New York Times Magazine. And let me share my screen so you can take a look at it. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'm just going to kind of briefly, go through it and give you information on what it was actually about, the information that they had pertaining to Black history, Black American history, and it's important that we understand Black American history, and we don't allow these Democrats, these liberals, to change the narrative, to change our historical narrative, which is exclusive to us. We don't have any other group of people that have a comparable history to Black Americans. We are not like these other groups. And I'm going to, show and prove with receipts. I'm tired of people, giving their opinions and it's the wrong shit and it's not where we need to be right now. We have first and second generation immigrants coming from their home countries and they get over here and they undermine black society. They undermine black Americans here. And if it wasn't for black Americans, there would be no immigrants here. Period. There would be no country to immigrate to. Black Americans were never forced to migrate or whatever the fuck the terminology they're trying to use today, but we're never forced to migrate to a different country. Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, are the original Native Americans here. Period. We were the original Native Americans. All right. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. And so the reason why I have to preface that is because this whole um, narrative that they're running with is based off of a premise that Black Americans were brought here to America, or Africans were brought here to America as slaves by the year 1619. And this is what they're trying to push, a false historical narrative. All right. This is a false historical narrative. All right. Now, this right here is just some notes I wrote down. 1619 Project. It was by the New York Times Magazine. It's a democratic article or liberal article. Uh, Basically, after the inception of that article that was put out, or that publication that was put out, that led to a fake ass debate between the liberals and the conservatives, of course. And this whole publication is supposed to be about Black American history, but what we get are lies mixed with half truths. Okay, Democrats acknowledging that Black people were oppressed, but do nothing to end the oppression. This is just an extension of the benign neglect policy that has been enacted on Black people since the late 1960s. You know what I'm saying? And with benign neglect, and I want to be specific about benign neglect, because I tell you what it is, you won't believe me. Non-interference that is intended to benefit someone or something more than continual attention would. The benign neglect policy, right, is a national race policy whereby the federal government does nothing more than allow the massive civil rights progress of the 1960s to take effect. The phrase began to define the controversy over whether to accept the status quo in government race policy. Basically, with benign neglect, they understand that white supremacy, governs our nation. They understand that we are subjects to white supremacy. So when Black people are advocating for change, we're advocating for economical inclusion, we're advocating for protection under the law from these race soldiers and things like that. We're advocating that these people get punished when they commit hate crimes due to race. And this is how they not address our issues. This is how they not address our issues with the benign neglect policy. Now you might think that, well, shit, that can't be a real policy, is it? Well, yeah, it's a real policy. Ever since the 1960s, they've been enacting benign neglect, and it has shown. You can see the physical representation of it by looking at the black community that only has 2.6% of all the nation's wealth, though, we were enslaved over here by white supremacists, and we generated the wealth where white supremacists took the wealth, and they kept the wealth for themselves and restricted resources from black Americans and made sure that even if they did have an opportunity to be successful, they were going to take that opportunity away through militaristic means. And so we're dealing with a whole country right now that was built by black Americans, where black Americans were called African Americans, whereas, you know, we're not African enough to go to Africa or to be associated with Africans, and we're not American enough to be American. Well, that time has changed because you have grassroots movement like such as this one. Um, big shout outs to the big homies out there, Young Pharaoh, General Seti, Zoe Williams, Tariq Nasheed. I mean, RIP to the goddess, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. You got Claude Anderson out there putting in work. I mean, geez, you got a lot of people out there putting in work. And Hidden Colors 5 just came out too. You know what I'm saying? So you have a lot of us black Americans putting out our historical narrative so that other black Americans can run with it, and we can get what is owed to us specifically as a group. All right. This is why ADOS was created by Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. You know what I'm saying? And this is why we have research groups that put together the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap report. You know what I'm saying? So that we can get an understanding of how blacks have been economically excluded from the American dream. You know what I'm saying? So I had to preface that before I get into it because, you know, if you don't know any of this history and you just believe every word that they say, it'll seem as if they're telling the truth, but they're really not giving you any real truth and any real history or anything that's going to help black people overcome this domestic terrorism in which we're, having to fight against on a day by day basis. So you got these black butter biscuit caucus, which they call the Black Caucus. Ain't nothing black about it, but besides the word black, ain't nothing black about it. There's not the Black Caucus don't have a pro-black agenda. Never had a pro-black agenda. If they did have a pro-black agenda, we'd have more than 2.6% of all the wealth in the nation. And they try to peddle this false narrative to give the impression that Black Americans we're doing just fine, and everything is set in place for us to do just as good as we want to do. But the reason why we're not attaining any economical prosperity is because we're lazy, or it's because we don't work as hard as other groups. So we got other groups that come over here, immigrant groups, black immigrants from other African nations come over here and undermine our progress. And the fucked up thing about it is black immigrants are coming over here speaking on behalf of black Americans, on black American issues. And that's what I have a huge problem with. See, I don't go to Jamaica, I don't go to Caribbean, I don't go to any African nation and say, "Hey, well, I don't think that you should get reparations for your country being colonized or you being enslaved under the British or the French or anything like that." You know what I'm saying? And I come in and basically say this is not a white supremacy issue. This is an immigrant issue. You know what I'm saying? Or me going up to another country and saying, well, I think I should get reparations too, because I mean, we black. You feel me? When that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a lineage that's connected to that history for me to speak on those people and whether or not they should receive reparations. That's very disrespectful of anybody to do that on behalf of another race. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about this 1619 project. Got these first and second generation ass niggas, these Obama type ass niggas, because we know Obama is not a black ADOS American. He's not a foundational black American. Even though he looks and talks and sounds like us, he's not one of us. And you wonder why. Obama undermines the entire black race. You know what I'm saying? When he's against reparations. When anybody with a fucking ounce of true historical narrative about Black Americans would understand that first off, they didn't immigrate here; they were forced into slavery, which they already lived here. You know what I'm saying? And after slavery, we had to deal with domestic terrorism, and this domestic terrorism also consisted of us not achieving any economical prosperity. All right, so black media like this platform, you know what I'm saying? Like this platform that I'm using, or Tariq Nasheed's platform, we don't just address the issues that are in black society. We address who is causing these issues and how to thwart systematic white supremacy. That's what we do. So as you read through this 1619 project, you can see that a lot of talking points that they use are coming from platforms such as this. They're basically taking information that we have already been disseminating for years. And another thing that you have to also ask yourself is why now? You know what I'm saying? Why wait on the 400th anniversary of the beginning of of American slavery, so to speak? You know what I'm saying? Why wait to the 400th anniversary as if it was something to celebrate to put this information out? Why is all of a sudden the Black Caucus and people affiliated with the Black Congressional Coon Butter Biscuit Caucus, all these coon ass niggas, why do they care all of a sudden when they was calling us Hotep niggas for even, being interested in our history? They were calling us Hoteps. You know what I'm saying? They was calling us straight up Hoteps for having pride in our history, for being black. And now that ADOS has tabled reparations on a national scale. You got the whole nation talking about reparations. They had to include reparations in the conversation, as far as the Democratic presidential campaign, because they know they're not going to get any support from black people unless they're going to come with some type of agenda that's going to benefit black people. And what we're finding out is the Democrats ain't shit. They ain't less racist than the fucking Republicans. Because what they're doing is getting immigrants from other countries to come over here that look like us, talk like us, sound like us. Some of them are first or second generation immigrants. Some of them were born here, but their parents, they have allegiances in other countries. You know what I'm saying? So then they try to intersect immigrational issues with Black American issues. And there's no way that you can do that because that's like comparing apples to steak. It's not even in the same field. We're talking about people that created culture, civilization, that created the nation of America versus the people who came to America after it was already built. And the wealth of America was generated by free labor. We're the ones, our ancestors were the ones who were engaged in the free labor because they were forced into free labor. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't get compensated for their labor. Those slave owners were compensated for their labor. So all the wealth that was generated from slavery still exists today and is still being compounded upon today. Now you have this big debt that is owed to Black Americans. This is a debt. This is not just reparation. This is not just a check for us. This is not just a financial claim that we're making. This is restitution. This is restitution and more. It's more than just getting a check. You know what I'm saying? This is restitution and more. This is reparations. This is reparations. This is not to repair a people who have been disenfranchised and broken. The lineage has been broken, destroyed. So we're talking about reparations. We're not just merely talking about restitution, which is a form of, a payback in form of money. You know what I'm saying? So we need that payback in the form of money. We need that payback in the form of money. We need economical inclusion. Hell, there's a case going on right now that none of the black leaders are talking about with Byron Allen. Byron Allen has a big major case against Donald Trump and the DOJ and Comcast. And the law that he's using to protect himself in this case is a law that was created in the Reconstruction era to give black people a chance after slavery had been abolished so that they weren't restricted from having, commercial interest. You know what I'm saying? They weren't so that they wouldn't be restricted from, doing contracting, so that they can have access to resources and so that they can build their economy. You feel me? They knew that they had to build that economy and they had to include black people into you know, the formation of the nation. You know what I'm saying? They had to economically include black people. They understood they had to do this after slavery ended. That's why they came up with the Reconstruction era laws. And even back then, they was fine. They got hella pushback from racist, people back then. You know what I'm saying? To not have these laws. So we need to be able to use these laws at our disposal. And Byron Allen is using these laws, or using the law at his disposal, suing for what they gave us the right to sue for. And currently, you got the president, the DOJ, siding with Comcast, right? Who basically said that they was trying to do for the black community. They said that they were trying to do for the black community. They're trying to, you know, they advocate for social justice and this and that and third and diversity, blah blah blah. Now they say that, but they are literally taking a court case that they lost twice to the Supreme Court, all so that they can finesse this law that's supposed to benefit black society. And if they finesse this Supreme Court case and win this case, Byron Allen's still going to be a billionaire. But guess what? Americans will not be able to sue, right, for racial biasm. You know what I'm saying? Because it's harder to prove racial biasm. They understand that. So they're making it to where we can't even use the laws that were created for Reconstruction era to protect us from, you know what I'm saying, protect us after slavery. We can't even use these laws to protect us anymore. Those are our last line of defense, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'll say the second last line of defense. The last line of defense is, nigga, your guns. You feel me? If they're not going to change it with law, then it's going to have to change some other way. The law is the best way to change shit. If we can't change, the dynamic of how we interface economically through the law, then we're going to have to do it some other way. You feel me? And for the Black Caucus to not address this, for Al Sharpton to stay quiet on it, and he's included in this shit. He's associated with this whole court case that's going on with Comcast. Hell, he signed off on it. He signed off on Comcast, disenfranchising the black community, all for his personal gain. You feel me? Signed that memorandum of understanding with Comcast and NBCU. They gave this motherfucker a daily show on NBCU, a talk show. He was a daily talk show host for NBCU, right? Meanwhile, they had $50 to $70 billion basically to allocate to different media companies, right? And how much of that 50 billion or 70 billion do black media companies get? Black-owned media companies? They get zero or next to nothing. Or hell, shit. Instead of actually giving some of them billions, how about we just hire one nigga to represent the collective of them, have him sign off on it, and we'll basically start a nonprofit for, social justice, and we'll let him be the mascot for it. We'll give him 50,000 a bucket of chicken, and he's gonna be straight. Meanwhile, they got 50 billion, 70 billion, and they allocating that to people who control the media, you white-owned media companies, and guess what? They control the media, which means they control your image of what you look like or how you think about yourself. Do you feel that, any white person should be in charge of how black people should be looked at within their own community? No. Hell to the no. Why the fuck would you be cool with that whole situation with Comcast taking advantage of the fact that, they're using whiteness to shut us out of economical prosperity? And if we can't control our media, how are we going to advertise for our businesses? Think about it. You got a business. How the fuck you going to promote for your business or market for your business without a marketing team, without people hitting the streets? You know what I'm saying? Most black-owned businesses don't even have employees. You feel me? Most black-owned businesses do not have one employee. If they do, they are the sole operator of their business. Most black owned businesses are solely operated by one person, especially black owned businesses owned by women, black women. You feel me? So there's no economical inclusion. All right. There's no economical inclusion, and black leaders ain't saying shit about that. I have to be adamant about that. I have to be adamant about that. All right. Now, let's get back into this 1619 project. Okay. You had some coons promoting it, like Spike Lee on CNN promoting the project. You have all these these black writers called us Hotep for talking about Black history. Now they're talking about Black history because their masters told them to. All right, and told them to tell it through the lens of, you know, white supremacy. Don't tell it through the lens of a true black historical narrative. Tell it through the lens of white supremacy, whereas there's no accountability. You feel me? And that's exactly how they did it. Now let's get into the half truths that they tell and the lies that they told in this. They say 1619 is the date where Africans basically were brought here as slaves. That's a goddamn lie. Okay, it says the 1619 Project is a major initiative from the New York Times observing the 400th anniversary of the beginning of American slavery. This is a lie. This is a lie. The beginning of American slavery was before 1619, and I'm gonna prove it. It aims to reframe the country's history, understanding 1619 as our true founding, a placing the consequences of slavery and the contributors of Black Americans at the very center of the story we tell ourselves about who we are. Okay? This is a half truth. This is a half truth because there are many different nations enslaving Africans all over the world. You had the Spanish, you had the Dutch, you had the French, you had the Portuguese, you had Germans even. You know what I'm saying? All these people, all these different nations of white people were working to enslave black people. And there's a reason for it, and I'm gonna get into it. There's a reason why us. And I'm gonna show you with receipts why. And it's gonna be clear as day after you watch the entirety of this video. It's gonna be clear as day what the fuck is going on. Now it says our democracy founding ideals were false when they were written. Black Americans have fought to make them true. So they're just putting all these little random ass quotes up there, you know what I'm saying, and talk about how black people were oppressed and how they're still oppressed to this day, but they're not giving any tangible solutions. Myths about physical racial differences were used to justify slavery and are still believed by doctors today. You know what I'm saying? What doctors? You know what I mean? There's no accountability. There's no accountability. You feel me? America, who is practicing white supremacy on the Africans? What nation? You know, we have to be specific. And this is there's a lot of vague languaging in um, this publication by New York Times. America holds onto an undemocratic assumption from its founding that some people deserve more power than others. I mean, that's all they're not giving us anything to really work with as far as a true historical narrative. Then they go in and say, for centuries, black music has been the sound of artistic freedom. No wonder everybody's always stealing it. Uh, see, just it's a whole bunch of nothing burgers. It's a whole bunch of nothing burgers. Why doesn't the United States have universal health care? The answer begins with policies enacted after the Civil War. I mean, it's just the languaging of all of this is just terrible. And they honestly, they keep jumping from subject to subject. And then it says slavery gave America a fear of black people and a taste for violent punishment. Both still define our prison system. So what they're basically is trying to say is, you know, black people just ran into this long string of bad luck. We're just running into all this bad luck. There's some bad people out there. We don't know who they are. Racism is just this formless entity. It's like a virus that just touched somebody and nobody can take accountability for it. It's just so, they just make the languaging of this shit so vague. And you would think if they did their research, that they give us some real information pertaining to our historical narrative so that we have tangible solutions to rectify the ills of the past. You feel me? As you go through, oh, and as I'm going through this, you see there's some, they have little they have little advertisements right here, right? They got little advertisements within the publication. To Kill a Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, there's one specific publication I want to show you, or one specific advertisement I want to show you that really irks my nerves. Really irks my nerves. And let me see where it's at. You see how they wrote this? I mean, they really didn't give a shit. They said their ancestors were enslaved by law. Today, they are graduates of Harvard or of Howard Law School. So they basically saying the rectification of post-slavery has occurred, and this is how we made it. So they basically told us, oh, we've been oppressed, but look at us today. We're graduates of Howard Law School. And this is supposed to be a win for us. Graduates of Howard Law School, huh? What are the graduates of Howard Law School going to do with the national debt? Not a goddamn thing. What are graduates of Howard Law School going to do about reparations specifically allocated to those who are owed reparations, which are Black Americans? They ain't done nothing up until this point. They ain't going to do nothing. Howard, look, isn't Howard a university named after white supremacists? Aren't all HBCUs named after white supremacists? Like real talk. Let me look this up real quick. Because look, our national debt 22 trillion. These HBCUs ain't gonna do anything to lower the national debt, and these HBCUs, aren't doing anything to, replace white supremacy with a system of justice. The HBCUs are just as infiltrated with white supremacy as any other university. Don't they have Greek fraternities in HBCUs? And we know the Greeks weren't Black. I don't give a fuck what you talking. You know what I'm saying? You Alpha, Omega, all this other shit. Who give a fuck? All that shit is white Greeks. White Greeks, not the Black Greeks. Those are white Greeks. And white Greeks, they practice homosexuality. So that's not even your culture. So to sit there and say, oh, now we're Harvard graduates. That's a big nothing burger. That doesn't mean that we made it. We didn't make it. Because if we can't sue these major corporations for economically excluding us from practicing racism, then these Howard Law students ain't shit. If you ask me, let's talk about it. Ain't most Howard Law graduates in fucking debt, paying off student loan debt still to this day? The student loan debt is at over $1 trillion and still climbing. And the debt that we have to pay is in Federal Reserve notes. The Federal Reserve notes are unconstitutional. Based off of our Constitution, we're not supposed to be using bills of credit. Federal Reserve notes that's not backed by gold or any precious metal. We got a fiat currency that's backed by absolutely nothing besides the people and the military. Right? That money has no intrinsic value. No intrinsic value, but the banks get to foreclose actual properties for people who don't generate enough income to pay their mortgages. And the banks, whenever they give a mortgage, they increase whenever they give a loan, they increase the money supply. Every single loan that they create and that you sign with your signature, that creates money. Ain't no fucking law or ain't no lawyer going to do anything to bring down a Federal Reserve, which is a white supremacy organization. And this organization is at the helm, at the front, when it comes to disenfranchising Black Americans and making sure they don't have any economic inclusion. They're the same people who run these major corporations who we're trying to sue right now for excluding us from the American dream. See, we don't just talk about what Black people are going through. We talk about who the fuck is responsible and how the fuck they need to atone for their sins. And if they don't atone for their sins, then shit, then we need to handle them accordingly. No ifs, ands, buts about it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? So I just wanted to preface what this 1619 project is about. I think you have a good idea. Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. Now they talk about Black people all throughout this shit, right? They talk about Black folks all throughout this shit. Let me show you something. Let me see if they still got it. Hold on. Let me see if they still got it, man. Because I saw it not too long ago, like earlier today, and shit looked like they took the ad down. It looks like they took the ad down, man. I swear to God. Like, no bullshit, they took the ad down. Hell yeah, they took that ad down. Man, when I tell you they had an ad up here, talking about change of life or some shit like that, but then you click on it on the learn more part, they talking about donate to Black and brown communities. I'm like, who these brown people they talking about? Who these brown people? Donate to these brown, what? Black and brown people. Why? Why are we donating to brown people? Like, that's why I don't like that term. I don't like Black and brown, or I don't like the term people of color. I don't like the term minorities. All those are convoluted terms to basically include other groups in the mix that have no fucking business being up in our mix. We are not comparable to these other groups. We are a unique group. You know what I'm saying? And the 1619 date is inaccurate. I wanted to bring up that fucking ad, but they took the ad down. They fucking took the ad down. Or maybe it's on a time. No, I think they just took that shit down because a lot of people were calling it out. Like, I damn sure called it out. Like, yo, Tariq called that shit out too. Like, yo, how you gonna talk about all this oppression that happened to Black people and then have an ad in the mix of this whole publication going to talk about donate to Black and brown people? So dismissive of our history, so disrespectful to include all these other groups in the mix as if they paid the debt that we did. As if, you know what I'm saying? As if they have the same comparable history. They don't have the same comparable history. Wherever these brown people during slavery and Jim Crow and all of that, where were they? You know what I'm saying? Immigrants didn't start coming here till after all that shit. Until after fucking Black people had to fight to get these white supremacists off of them. Black people had to get them out of slavery. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't Abraham Lincoln. It wasn't just that. It was Black people, you know what I'm saying? Black Americans going around and fucking killing their slave owners. And then there's so many white people were so afraid that they abolished slavery. They said, man, fuck this slavery shit. We can't even sleep at night. You feel me? It took all that for white folks to ease up off of us. You dig? It took all that to ease up off of us a little bit. But once we let them niggas back in, especially with integration, it was a wrap. You know? But let's go over the 1619 date, right? Black people, okay? The census of Virginia in the 1620s time had lists of black people already living in that era. That's the first debunk. And then if you go back to the 1580s, there were black people down in Florida that arrived with the Spanish. All right. But you can go back even further. In 1526, area in South Carolina, the Spanish tried to have a settlement out there. They brought some black people there. The black people rose up and rebelled against the Spanish and drove the Spanish out. This is 1526. So there was slavery in the Americas before the motherfuckers from Great Britain came over here. You feel me? The thing about it is, black people fought against their oppressors and didn't allow their oppressor to enslave them. You understand me? And that's why they have to start black history at 1619. That's why. Because if you know about black people that lived here before that period, you would know that there were people here that went with the bullshit. You dig? And we would, and if we knew that history, we wouldn't allow to be enslaved by these people. Especially knowing the fact that when they came here in 1610, white people by themselves tried to settle on this land by themselves. 500 got here in Jamestown, right? And from winter to spring, literally within 3 months, one season, there was only 60 people left due to starvation. And the only reason why there were 60 people left is because the only reason why they survived is because they had to eat other humans to survive. Because of cannibalism. The same shit that they did throughout the Dark Ages in Europe. Okay? They couldn't fucking feed themselves. You wonder why they had to enslave us globally. I'm going to go through that a little bit later. But I got the receipts on this in case y'all wondering. You know what I'm saying? What? Black people before here? Black people in America before 1600s? Look, there's an article right here. This article came out September 4, 2017. This is before the 1619 project. The fallacy of 1619, rethinking the history of Africans in early America. All right. If you did any research and knew this information, then how the fuck you gonna go and put that 1619 bullshit in the New York Times? But let's keep it pushing. In 1619, 20 and odd Negroes arrived off the coast of Virginia, where they were bought for victual by labor-hungry English colonists. The story of these captive Africans has set the stage for countless scholars interested in telling the story of slavery in English North America. Unfortunately, 1916 is not the best place to go to begin a meaningful inquiry into the history of African peoples in America. Certainly, there is a story to be told that begins in 1619, but it is neither well suited to help us understand slavery as an institution nor to help us better grasp the complicated place of African peoples in the early modern Atlantic world. For too long, the focus on 1916 has led the general public and scholars alike to ignore more important issues and worse, to silently accept unquestioned assumptions that continue to impact us in remarkably consequential ways. As a historical signifier, 1619 may be more insidious than instructive. The fallacy, I didn't write this fucking article, okay? I didn't write this article. This was written by who? Let's see who this is. Michael Guasco. Michael Guasco. Who's Michael Guasco? Where's Michael Guasco? Let's keep it pushing. Let's keep it pushing. I don't want to get off track. In truth, okay. The fallacy, the fallacy of 1619 begins with the questions that most of us reflexively ask when we consider the first documented arrival of a handful of people from Africa in a place that will one day become the United States of America. First, what was the status of the newly arrived African men and women? Were they slaves, servants, something else? And second, as Winthrop Jordan wondered in the preface to his 1968 classic White Over Black, what did the white inhabitants of Virginia think when these dark-skinned people were rowed ashore and traded for provisions? Were they shocked? Were they frightened? Did they notice these people were black? If so, did they care? In truth, these questions fail to approach the subject of Africans in America in a historically responsible way. None of these queries conceive of the newly arrived Africans as actors in their own right. These questions also assume that the arrival of these people was an exceptional historical moment, and they reflect the worries and concerns of the world we inhabit rather than shedding useful light on the unique challenges of life in the early 17th century. Okay, I can go on and on and on and read this article, but you can read this article yourself. This is the fallacy of 1916, rethinking the history of Africans in early America. This shit come out. This shit came out 2 years before the anniversary of the 1619 enslavement of Africans. You know what I'm saying? 2 years before the 1619 project. This was said, and ain't nobody brought this up. I mean, come on, man. Really? Let's keep it pushing. More proof. And black people aren't the only ones that have pointed this shit out. White scholars have pointed this shit out. You can even go to History Channel. The History Channel would say this. Look, history. America's history of slavery began long before Jamestown. Jamestown is 1610. And remember, when Jamestown popped off in 1610, white folks couldn't live here on their own. You know what I'm saying? The arrival of the first captives to Jamestown Colony in 1619 is often seen as the beginning of slavery in America, but enslaved Africans arrived in North America as early as the 1500s. This is the History Channel. This is the History Channel. So you mean to tell me the Black Caucus didn't know this information? In late August 1619, the White Lion, an English privateer commanded by John Joe, sailed into Point Comfort and dropped anchor in the James River. Virginia colonist John Rolfe documented the arrival of the ship and 20 and odd Africans on board. His journal entry is immortalized in textbooks, with 1619 often used as a reference point for teaching the origins of slavery in America. But the history, it seems, is far more complicated than a single date. But they made a whole project about 1619, though. And look who the people who are speaking on slavery. These people are not foundational Black Americans, and they're not ADOS. If they are, if any of them are, they're well misinformed. Okay? This is fucking History Channel. How the hell you won't come across this if you're doing research? It is believed the first Africans brought to the colony of Virginia 400 years ago this month were Kimbundu speaking peoples from the kingdom of Ndongo, located in part of present-day Angola. Slave traders forced the captives to march several hundred miles to the coast to board the San Juan Bautista, one of at least 36 transatlantic Portuguese and Spanish slave ships. This ship embarked with about 350 Africans on board, but hunger and disease took a swift toll. En route, about 150 captives died. Then, when the San Juan Bautista approached what is now Veracruz, Mexico, in the summer of 1619, it encountered two ships, the White Lion and another English privateer, the Treasurer. The crew stormed the vulnerable slave ship and seized 50 to 60 of the remaining Africans after the pair sailed for Virginia. As noted by Rolfe, when the White Lion arrived in what is now present-day Hampton, Virginia, the Africans were offloaded and bought for victuals. Governor Sir George Yeardley and head merchant Abraham Pearsley acquired the majority of the captives, most of whom were kept in Jamestown, America's first permanent English settlement. All right. The arrival of these 20 and odd Africans to England's mainland American colonies in 1619 is now a focal point in history. The date and their story have become symbolic of slavery's roots, despite captive Africans likely being present in the Americas in the 1400s and as early as 1526 in the region that would become the United States. Some experts, including Michael Guasco, a professor at Davidson College, remember I mentioned Michael Guasco, Davidson College, an author of Slaves and Englishmen, Human Bondage in the Early Modern Atlantic World, caution about placing too much emphasis on the year 1619. to ignore what had been happening with relative frequency in the broader Atlantic world over the preceding 100 years or so understates the real brutality of the ongoing slave trade, of which the 1619 group were undoubtedly a part, and minimizes the significant African presence in the Atlantic world to that point. Guasco explains people of African descent have been here longer than the English colonies. Okay? This is the History Channel. Okay, and they cited the dude I just read in this article right here talking about the fallacy of 1619. Also, 10 pieces of evidence that prove black people sailed to Americas long before Columbus. All right, posted by Taylor Gordon. Okay, shout out to Taylor Gordon. You know what I'm saying? I got a lot of these same notes. You feel me? But I like how this is put together, so we're going to go through it. Columbus himself, okay? According to renowned American historian and linguist Leo Weiner of Harvard University, one of the strongest pieces of evidence to support the fact that black people sailed to America before Christopher Columbus was a journal entry from Columbus himself. In Weiner's book, Africa and the Discovery of America, he explains that Columbus noted in his journal that the Native Americans confirmed black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears. Next, American narcotics discovered in Egyptian mummies. The discovery of American narcotics in Egyptian mummies has left some historians amazed. Recently, archaeologists discovered the presence of narcotics only known to be derived from American plants in ancient Egyptian mummies. These substances included South American cocaine from erythoxylon and nicotine from Nicotiana tabacum. German toxicologist Svetla Balabanova reported the findings, which suggest that such compounds made their way to Africa through transatlantic trade that would predate Columbus's arrival by thousands of years. Moving on. Egyptian artifacts in North America. For years, Eurocentric archaeologists have largely turned the other cheek when it came to the discovery of artifacts from ancient Egypt being discovered in the Americas. According to Dr. David Imhotep, the author behind the book The First Americans Were Africans, documented evidence. Egyptian artifacts found across North America, from the Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts and Egyptian place names in the Grand Canyon, are all signs of an early arrival in the Americas by Africans. This is also paired with a much earlier account of black people with incredible skills at sea. Back in 445 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote of King Ramses III, leading a team of Africans at sea with astounding seafaring and navigational skills together. Both accounts would point to Africans sailing over to the New World before Columbus. Next, ancient pyramids. Constructing pyramids was a highly specialized and complicated task that took the ancient Egyptians a lot of time to master. In ancient Egypt, there are signs of progression from the original step pyramid of Djoser to the more sophisticated pyramids that now stand at Giza. According to historians, it would be impossible for any group of people to have built these same complex pyramids without going through the same progression. Professor Everett Borders noted the presence of completed pyramids in Levante in Mexico, but the unusual absence of any earlier forms of the pyramids. According to Borders, it's a sign that Africans, having already mastered the construction of pyramids in Egypt, sailed over to the New World and constructed these dual-purpose tombs and temples in the Americas. Okay? Ancient African skeletons discovered in the New World. There have been many instances of archaeologists discovering skulls and skeletons that they believed clearly belonged to people of African descent. Polish professor, okay, y'all see it. This nigga right here. Polish professor Andrzej Wierkinski, whatever, revealed the discovery of African skulls at Olmec sites in Tlectlico, Cerro de las Mesas and Monte Aben. Even more ancient African skeletons that would clearly predate Columbus's arrival in the Americas were discovered throughout Central America and South America, with some even being unearthed in what is now California. More proof. Let's go. A clear link in religion. The similarities in Native American and African religions also suggest that Africans had to have had early contact with the Native Americans by sailing to the New World. Before Columbus stumbled upon the Native Americans' land, there were prominent figures of deities with dark skin and coarse hair throughout their religion. Today, many surviving portraits reveal these deities who were clearly crafted in the likeness of Africans. Historians also point to wall paintings in caves in South America that depict the ancient Egyptian opening of the mouth and cross liberation rituals. Oh, libation rituals. I'm sorry. Libation rituals. The accounts of other European explorers. Christopher Columbus wasn't the only European explorer who made note of an African presence in the Americas upon his arrival. Historians revealed that at least a dozen other explorers, including Vasco Nunez de Balboa, also made record of seeing Negroes when they reached the New World. The accounts match up with the reports from the natives in Mexico. Nicholas Leon, an eminent Mexican authority, recorded the oral traditions of his people and ultimately kept track of a key piece of evidence that black people made it to the New World far before their European counterparts. His reports revealed accounts from natives saying the oldest inhabitants of Mexico were blacks. The existence of blacks and giants is commonly believed by nearly all the races of our cell, and in their various language, they had words to designate them. Lastly, or not lastly, I think it's two more. Africans were master shipbuilders. Some people insist that Africans couldn't have made it to the New World first simply because they didn't have the skill and resources to sail across the Atlantic. As it turns out, that's completely false. Historians have discovered evidence that suggests Africans were masters at building ships and that it was actually a part of their tradition. Shipbuilding and sailing are over 20,000 years old in the Sahara, and cave wall paintings of ancient ships were displayed in National Geographic magazine years ago. With those shipbuilding skills and the navigation skills that were noted by other historians of the time, the myth that Africans wouldn't have been able to sail to the New World becomes officially debunked. As Dr. Julian Whitewright, a maritime archaeologist at the University of Southampton, explained, the voyage from Africa on ancient ships was quite a plausible undertaking, based on the capabilities of the vessel of the period and historical materials stating it took place. Lastly, gigantic stone heads in central Mexico. The Olmec civilization was the first significant civilization in Mesoamerica and deemed mother culture of Mexico. By some historians, this civilization, dominated by Africans, is best known for the colossal carved heads in central Mexico that serve as even more evidence that Africans sailed to the New World before Columbus. The heads are clearly crafted in the likeness of Africans. The same civilization that created these giant heads was also responsible for including written language, art, sophisticated astronomy, and mathematics to Mesoamerican civilization, ancient African historian Professor Van Sertima explained. A long history of trade by sea. According to Paul Alfred Barton, the author of A History of the African Olmecs, Black Civilizations of America from Prehistoric Times to the Present Era, ancient kingdoms in West Africa have a long history of trade by sail, which made it all the more likely that they eventually expanded their trade to the Americas. While the Sahara is a dry desert today, its past as a lake-filled, wet, and fertile place has been well documented. African ships often crossed these large lakes to get from place to place and traded with other African civilizations along the way. After expanding their trade to the Americas, they certainly made their mark as things like African native cotton were soon being discovered all across North America. So, going back to this 1619 date, they talk about how our history starts at 1619. I just went over confirmable receipts, evidence that Africans have been in the Americas long before the 13 colonies that eventually, you know what I'm saying, will become the United States of today. You feel me? So we was in South America, North America, long before the Europeans were here. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody is an immigrant to this land, it's white Europeans and any other immigrant, Mexicans, any other group of people that came to this land would be considered an immigrant. Period. We didn't immigrate here. We came to a wilderness where there was no country. It was uninhabited by any other group of people, and we built civilization. We brought culture to this land. We built America. We didn't immigrate to America. There was no America to immigrate to. We came here to a landmass that wasn't inhabited by anybody and brought culture to the landmass, brought civilization to the landmass, brought trade, architecture, engineering, math, sciences, languages here before anybody. Okay? So you starting Black American history at 1619 is a great disservice to Black Americans who deserve a factual account of history, a factual account to where it's not tainted by those in the dominant society exploiting, you know, our plight. You feel me? So that's proof, right? That's proof right there. And like I said, in 1526, the area in South Carolina, the Spanish tried to have a settlement out there. They brought some black people out there. Black people rose up and rebelled against the Spanish and drove them out. Afterwards, black people mixed in with the native Aboriginal tribes, right, which were black people. All right, some of those people were the red-skinned Native Americans that you know, but the original Native American tribes were Africans that had came here when there was no country and built what is today America. You know what I'm saying? So there were tribes already set up here. You feel me? Which the majority of them were black people. And they mixed in with those tribes. And some of those people, you know, were, you know, Native, or what you know to be Redskins or Native Americans or whatever the fuck you want to call it, Indians, whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to call them Native Americans because Native, we're talking about the people who are native to the land. The people who are native to this land are black people. The people who are native to the globe are black people. It's not just this land, it's all over the globe. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you can't compare us to immigrants. That's why you can't compare us to any other group. All right. Now, okay. The reason why they don't, oh, I already brought that up. The reason why they don't talk about Africans being here before 1619 is because black people of that time did not allow themselves to be enslaved. They fought off their oppressors and ran them off the land. They don't want to talk about how we whooped ass when we got here. They want to talk about how we assisted the oppressor to enslave us. Now, they try to make this a right-wing issue. They don't specify who was accountable for slavery through the lens of white supremacy. And I'm talking about the 1619 project still, all right? They never put in context of who was oppressing black people on this land. Like I said, this is just an extension of benign neglect. Benign neglect went from denying us policies that were going to help benefit us. Now it's, you know, neglecting the fact that we even have history here. They're neglecting, they're denying our whole history. You know what I'm saying? So benign neglect has expanded to erase us from history. They make it seem as if black people just ran into some bad luck. This platform and many others like this one address the issues that black Americans are going through and who is causing it and what you need to do to thwart it. All right. Now, 1619 is used to attach us to biblical prophecy. All right. And I think that's one of the reasons why You see a lot of Jesus splaining and Christian talk, in regards to this project. When people affiliated with this project, they had a little gospel group singing some Christian songs and shit. And I don't really get down with that because that's basically telling black people to let Jesus take care of it. And FYI, Jesus never actually existed. I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't care what your religion is. Historically, Jesus never existed. If you don't believe that, then oh well. My job isn't to convince you. I'm just giving you a literal truth so that you're not over here expecting some type of miracle to happen, because ain't no miracle coming for you. You feel me? And the reason why, they had to sprinkle Christian ideology within this 1619 project is to basically, keep black people pacified under that religion, under white supremacy. And anytime when you accept a God that is not your own, you know what I'm saying? You're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up to do the bidding of somebody else's God. And you always got to be aware of that. So, you know, people forget that Christianity was given to us by white slave owners. So if Christianity was given to us by white slave owners, why the fuck are y'all coming around us with the whole gospel talk, with the whole Christianity talk? Huh? Why y'all talking about some Jesus? What I don't understand is, how can you have a religion that KKK members, they use the same religion? I don't understand. Somebody's not doing their due diligence and understanding what the fuck is in their Bible. You feel me? Somebody's not understanding, because there's no way that we should have black people advocating this hard for Christianity, given the history of Christianity and where it came from. It came from white supremacists who were using the Bible, right, to do their own bidding, to pacify us so that we wouldn't, rise up against our slave owners. All right. And I just thought that was just a big slap in the face to black people. You know what I'm saying? And just very, very disrespectful, and just disregards the true narrative of how we got here. Even the Japanese, shit, they dropped two atomic bombs on the Japanese, and the Japanese never gave up their gods. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they were able to recover from two atomic bombs. They never accepted Christianity. They looked at that as the white God, and they're right. They never accepted Christianity. They knew that if you accept another people's God, you would have to do that God's bidding. And if that God, you know, if it's in the agenda of that God to enslave you, you'll never break from bondage. You know what I'm saying? And if you always believe that's your God, you're never going to be able to fight your enemy with your all. You understand? Now, they had the color of change advertisement. Since they took down the fucking advertisement, let me see if I can find it again. The color of change. Right? Because they tried to turn this shit from a white supremacy issue, you know what I'm saying, a black American issue, to a Crayola issue. See, the problem is, a lot of you motherfuckers think race and community is Crayola. You dig? Now look, colorofchange.org. I wonder who owns this. Now, they put a black woman up in front, raising her hand, you dig? Color change helps you to do something real about injustice. We design campaigns powerful enough to end practices that unfairly hold black people back and champion solutions that move us all forward until justice is real. Oh my God. They actually said black people. Is this the same company? This the same shit? Because they was talking about some black and brown shit at first. This ain't, like, I didn't look this up. It was just, see, the color of change ad. There was a color of change ad throughout the 1619 project. You know, I was scrolling throughout the 1619 project, and you know they had that To Kill a Mockingbird ad that shows. But before it wasn't that ad that they were playing. It was the Color of Change ad, and it was to donate to Black and Brown communities. Swear to God, and the ad's gone. You know what I'm saying? So I was just trying to show you that these people were man, the blatant disrespect of these people. I swear to God, the blatant disrespect, and they took it down, and you could tell they took it down because look, I took notes. The fucking ad was there, and they took the ad down. Obviously, they seen that black people was getting on code and pointed it out, and they took that shit down. That's what I'm thinking. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't understand why you would take an ad down. You know what I mean? You keep the ad up because you get paid to run ads. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, all right. Yeah, man. Shit, they were talking about black and brown. Like what brown? Like I just explained how we had to fight against the Spanish in 1526. So what brown people were being disenfranchised when we're fighting off the Spanish in 1526, and we had to drive the Spanish out because they were trying to enslave black people. You know what I'm saying? So where is this black and brown coalition? We never had a black and brown coalition. You know what I'm saying? This never had one. All right. Brown ain't a people. It ain't a race of people or anything. You know, most Hispanic people identify as white. You know what I'm saying? And I've already broke this shit down plenty of fucking times. Mexico is a nation. So if you're Mexican, Mexican ain't a race. Your nationality is Mexican. As far as your race, you can only be one of two races, right? You're either African or black, or you're non-African, non-black, or white, whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? Now we do know that there are social, um, elements that are attributed to those, races. So when you say white people, you think rich people. When you say black people, you think broke people. You feel me? And they create this system to be like that. They compartmentalize, categories of people, dividing us up, race, gender. I mean, all sorts of little divisions exist in order to keep us feuding with each other and not bring actual unification and dismantle the system of white supremacy. But they understand that if the people don't really understand what racism truly is or what white supremacy truly is, then they'll never do anything about it. You feel me? Because they don't know what to do anything about. They think everything is just fine, but the languaging confuses people. Because you hear black and brown people, you think, oh, all brown people go through the same. They went through the same history as us. You start to think that, but that's not the case. That's not true. These same brown people they actually identify as white people, and their whole culture is not anything like urban or whatever you would think. Their whole culture comes from, you know, um, Rome. Period. It all comes from Rome. Hispania was created by Rome, controlled by Rome. The languages that Hispanic people speak or Latin people speak, it comes Spanish people. It comes from Latin. Latin is a Romanist language. So we're talking about white Romans. We're talking about the Pope, white Europeans. So you calling yourself a Mexican or you calling yourself Spanish or Hispanic or any of that shit is basically saying that you identify with certain cultures, but as far as your race, you're not black. Okay? That's basically what you're saying. You're not black. Because most people who say that they're Hispanic, they're not going to tell you they're white Hispanic. They're just going to say they're Hispanic, and they're going to kind of make it seem as if they have the same type of, you know, history as you, right? Because they immigrated here from another place and whatever the case may be. But you can't compare these people, their struggle to our struggle. You just can't compare it. It's not even close. It's not even close. So to advocate, for social justice, right? We need to be specific about who this social injustice is being, you know, who's getting the brunt of this social injustice, right? We need to take care of those people, period. We need to take care of them first. Who are the people that built this nation? Free labor, black people, black Americans did, all right? It was part of the federal law to enslave black people on U.S. soil. You know what I'm saying? It was condoned on the highest level of government. When have brown people had to ever go through that? I mean, as far as I see it, brown people were helping enslave black folks because brown people ain't nothing more than, descendants of the Spaniards because they identify with white. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you have more melanated looking or more darker looking Hispanic people because they're descendants of all kinds of races too. They're descendants of Mongoloids, of Dravidians. That's why you can get a picture of an Asian man and a Mexican. They look damn near alike. They're from the same lineage of people. They're not Africans. Some of them are Africans because what you got to understand is you can be black and speak Spanish. That just makes you a black Hispanic. You know what I'm saying? So they got black people that live in their home countries, right? These immigrants that come over here, they got black people in their home countries, and they practice white supremacy in their home countries, and then come over here talk about we got a black and brown coalition. Prove it. It doesn't show in your home countries that you have a black and brown coalition. You know what I'm saying? And anybody want to argue with me, fine. Anybody want to debate, let's go. I got receipts ready. You know what I'm saying? I stay with receipts. And I can go from what I can only go on what I observe. I'm not going to sit here and hope for the best. I go off of confirmable evidence. You feel me? I'm not saying that everybody who's Mexican is racist or white supremacist or has white supremacist interests. I'm saying, or I'm not even saying that all Mexicans or Hispanics identify as being white. I'm saying this: Hispanic is a racially ambiguous term. You know what I'm saying? And some of these racial terms, like white, is a racial ambiguous term because you can make certain people white and certain people not white. Like Irish people weren't always considered white. Italian people weren't always considered true white people. Hell, Jews weren't considered pure whites. That's why, what I'm saying, you had Hitler, basically killing all these Jews under the guise of them not being pure Aryans. Okay? So when we talk about race, man, we ain't talking about Crayola. Okay? So miss me with that black and brown shit. We talking about lineages. We talking about lineages. All right. And I know how it can easily be confused when you have to associate, people with their nationalities. You know what I'm saying? I know it can get a little frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is. You got to be aware of what's going on. You got to know race. When they talk about race, they're asking whether or not you white or black or African or non-African. There's only two different races. Now you have subcategories in there that are created, you know what I'm saying, by the dominant society, and they had to create those subcategories so that they can use these people to, maintain the power of the ruling elite. So they don't want any justice. They don't want any peace. They make more money off of war. They make bigger profits off of war. You know what I'm saying? So the fact is that we are more American than any other group that comes here. I mean, just look at our values, our principles, our whole identity. You know what I'm saying? Screams, you know, true American. Freedom. You know what I'm saying? Love and acceptance of others, things like that. Black people are the ones who uphold those values. White people don't do that here in America. If they did, there'd be no systematic white supremacy. And we make people accountable for their sins. So just because you not practicing it hard like Jimmy is practicing it, doesn't mean that we just gonna drop our defense against you. It just means that was shit. You're not as bad as a white. You're not as complicit. You're not as complicit as Jimmy is complicit, but you're still complicit. So we treat you as we treat you like Jimmy. We treat you like Jimmy. You feel me? There's no room for people who are complicit with white supremacy in this nation because the whole identity of this nation actually describes Black Americans. The real identity of this nation actually describes how Black Americans can condone themselves and how we get along with other nations. If white people understood anything about Black people, they would understand how to get along with other nations. But they haven't even learned that still to this day. And it's actually killing them. It's actually killing them. They don't realize how much they really need us in order for them to preserve whatever kind of existence they're trying to preserve. But that whole pure white existence, that shit dead. You can't sit there and have these enclaves of white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? You got to understand whiteness, biologically speaking, is actually a defect, a defective mutation from the African. It's a defect, and that's why Africans and Black people are biologically superior than white people. And we're not going to be bashful about it. I mean, it's the truth. We're biologically superior than white people due to the neuromelanin and the concentration of melanin in our bodies. And our whole body is codified in melanin. We are children of the sun. We are the closest thing to the supreme being or the creator than anything. You feel me? It's not a big coincidence that we're good at everything. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big coincidence that we're musically talented. We're athletic as fuck. Our babies are smarter. We can do anything we set our minds to. Nigga, we survived Africa. We survived Africa. Not only survived it, we flourished in Africa and created amazing empires that can't even be duplicated to this day. We created Egypt. The Egyptian empire is an empire that stands the test of time and it cannot be duplicated. Cannot be duplicated. If these people can build pyramids like our ancestors, you don't think they would have been building pyramids everywhere? They ain't building no great pyramids of Giza. They ain't building no great pyramids of Giza. They're not even close. They don't shit. A lot of white people think aliens built them fucking great pyramids. They can't fathom that Africans were that smart doing the work, doing that shit on their own without having to be oppressed to do so. It destroys the modern historical narrative that has been pushed by the dominant society. Know what I'm saying? All right. So now we went through the hardcore shit. We went through the hardcore shit. Now, like I said, we had Black Americans that migrated here to an uninhabited wilderness. We built what is known as America. Built railroads, ditches, systems of trade routes, agriculture. The white supremacists that arrived in Jamestown by themselves in 1610, and they nearly died out due to starvation in less than a season. Okay? Now let's go. Let me go to that real quick. Let me go to that real quick. Starving time. They call it starving time. Starving time at Jamestown in the colony of Virginia was a period of starvation during the winter of 1609 and 1610. One season. There were about 500 Jamestown residents at the beginning of winter. However, there were only 60 people still alive when the spring arrived. The colonists, the first group of whom had originally arrived at Jamestown on May 13, 1607, had never planned to grow all of their own food. Look, they didn't even plan to grow. What sense does this make? Who would go all the way to America from fucking Europe? Who would sail across the Atlantic Ocean to get over here, right? And not even plan to grow your own food. Where they do that at? You must have already knew that there were people here. You had to know there were other people here. There was civilization here to get your food. There's no way I'm going on a trip when I'm not even guaranteed to eat. Nigga, we didn't even plan to grow our food. Nigga, we didn't come prepared. Like, nigga, we didn't have seeds. We had none of that shit. We didn't have at least the knowledge. Or I don't say we. I say they did. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just speaking, if I were one of these white Europeans having to go on this fucking exploration, 500 people, and no fucking plan on how we gonna eat, nigga. It's like they went knowing that, well, shit, if it don't work out, I'm gonna just eat George over here. Like, real talk. Let's keep it real with these people. What civilization have they created? They ain't create shit. They ain't create shit in one season. One season. Let's do the math on this. Let's do the math. Let me show you something. Let's do the math. Let's do the math. Let's get the calculator out. Let's get the calculator out of here. What's going on? Okay, yeah. I was clicking on it. All right, let me show you something. We got 500. Oh, no. We got 60 divided by 500. So you mean to tell me 88% of the people who went on this fucking trip to Jamestown died off because they didn't plan to grow their own food when they got to America from from Europe? Does that make sense? And these people should be attributed to the building of this nation? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. They can't even feed themselves in America or in Europe. Hell, the Spanish in 1526 had the same fucking problem. The white Spaniards that came over here and tried to enslave black people in 1526 they had the same problem and almost died out due to starvation and not being able to cultivate the land, not being able to bring agriculture to the land that they wanted to basically colonize. Didn't have a plan to grow all their own food. So they must have been planning to take it from somebody else who was already there. See, their plans depended upon trade with the local Powhatan to supply them with food between the arrivals of periodic supply ships from England. So they were depending upon this Native American indigenous tribe. They're depending on black folks and indigenous people, the redskin people. You know what I'm saying? They were depending on us to supply them with food between the arrivals of periodic supply ships from England. Lack of access to water and a relatively dry rain season crippled the agricultural production of the colonists. Also, the water that the colonists drank was brackish and potable for only half of the year. A fleet from England, damaged by a hurricane, arrived months behind schedule with new colonists, but without expected food supplies. On June 7, 1610, the survivors boarded ships abandoned by the colony site and sailed towards the Chesapeake Bay. There, another supply convoy with new supplies headed by newly appointed Governor Francis West intercepted them on the lower James River and returned them to Jamestown. Within a few years, the commercialization of tobacco by John Rolfe secured the settlement's long-term economic prosperity. There is scientific evidence that settlers at Jamestown had turned to cannibalism during the starving time. Duh. Okay? That shit was going on during 1619. That's what was going on around that time. They ain't speaking on that. Now let's talk about the Spaniards, how they almost died off too. Not to mention them Africans was giving them that work over here on U.S. on American soil. Now the Narvaez expedition was a Spanish journey of exploration and colonization started in 1527 that intended to establish colonial settlements and garrisons in Florida. The expedition was initially led by Panfilo de Narvaez, Narvaez, who died in 1528. More men died as the expedition traveled west along the unexplored Gulf Coast of the present day United States and into the American Southwest. Only 4 of the expedition's original members survived, reaching Mexico City in 1536. These survivors were the first known Europeans and Africans to see the Mississippi River and to cross Gulf of Mexico and Texas. Nigga, this is 1536. And they talking about some 1619. Narvaez's crew initially numbered about 600, including men from Spain, Portugal, Greece, and Italy. The expedition met with disaster almost immediately, making stops at Hispaniola and Cuba on the way to Florida. The fleet was devastated by a hurricane, among other storms, and lost 2 ships after landing near Sarasota Bay. The expedition was split, with 300 men sent overland in search of gold. They encountered numerous attacks by indigenous peoples and suffered from disease and starvation. Huh? By September 1528, following an attempt by survivors to sail on makeshift rafts from Florida to Mexico, only 80 men survived after being swept onto Galveston Island off the coast of Texas. The stranded survivors were enslaved by Native American tribes, and more men continued to die from harsh conditions. Only 4 of the original party, Alvaro Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, Alonso del Castillo Maldonado, Andres Durantes de Carranza, and Durantes enslaved Moor Estebanico, survived the next 8 years, during which they wandered through what is now the southwest United States and northern Mexico. They eventually encountered Spanish slave catchers in Sinaloa in 1536, and with them, the 4 men finally reached Mexico City. Upon returning to Spain, Cabeza de Vaca wrote of the expedition in his last relation, published in 1542 as first written account of North America. With later editions, it was published under the title Shipwreck. All right. So, you got Jamestown, white settlers from Britain, white settlers from Spain, dying out due to starvation because they can't feed themselves. All meanwhile trying to enslave Africans. All right, close some of these down. Now, this is a congresswoman who's advocating for this 1619 project. Her name is Yvette D. Clarke. Now, Yvette D. Clarke, a Brooklyn native proud of her Jamaican heritage. Notice I have it highlighted. Jamaican heritage, attended the New York City public schools, graduated from Oberlin College, and was a recipient of the prestigious APPAM, so blah, blah, blah. Nobody gives a fuck. All right? What have you done for black women? What have you done for black people? Black Americans specifically. Since you want to fucking live over here and use up our benefits, but you proud of Jamaican heritage. So you niggas with dual allegiances, we ain't fucking with y'all. We fucking with Americans. You can't get no more American than that. So you niggas coming over here with your Jamaican flags, nobody disrespecting your flags, none of that shit. But we just ain't rocking with you and telling you to hold your own nuts when it comes to black politics because too many of y'all are coming over on this side of the game undermining our movement that was created by us, for us, by us. Nigga like FUBU. Straight up. Straight the fuck up. All right? Get rid of some of these. Ah, man. This is just more confirmation that Africans, black people, were in the Americas long before 1500s or 1400s. We talking about 1000 BC, 500 BC, ancient African um, terracotta portraits, 1000 BC to 500 BC. Gigantic stone hand, a Negritic African during the Olmec civilization. Let's see. I mean, there's overwhelming information on this. Overwhelming. Look, these are Mesoamerican pyramids with stepped appearance built about 2,500 years ago. And if you look below it, this is the step pyramid of Saqqara, Egypt, built over 4,000 years ago compared to Mesoamerican pyramid. Now, the dates are, you know what I'm saying? You can take the dates with a grain of salt because they're not going to give you no real dates, but at the same time, look, the structures speak for themselves, right? If they're building step pyramids over there, they obviously the idea of the step pyramid or the architecture of the step pyramid had to come from a source. It didn't just spring up in two different places at two different times. You understand what I mean? It come from the same culture. Here's the ancient sea-going vessel used by Egyptians and Nubians in ancient times. Here's a depiction of it right here. You see the Africans in their boat. You know what I'm saying? They were highly intelligent seafarers and navigators. In order to navigate, you had to fucking navigate. You know what I'm saying? You had to actually go somewhere and navigate. You can't navigate from the house. Here's the Nubian Kushite king and queen, 1000 BC. Afro-Olmecs came from the Mindi regions of West Africa. I mean, so fucking much evidence to show. Look, face of Afro-Olmec child carved on the waist belt of an Olmec ball. What does it say? Of an Olmec ball player. Boom. Gigantic stone head of Afro-Olmec, 1100 BC. Trade routes of the ancient blacks during the years of migrations of Africans to all parts of the world. During the years of migrations of Africans to all parts of the world, those who crossed the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Pacific also used the seas to make trips to the northern parts of Africa. They may have avoided the northern routes across the deserts at particular times of the year and sailed northward by sailing parallel to the coastlines on their way northward or southward, just as the Phoenicians, Nubians, and Egyptians had done. Boats made of skin, logs, hollow tree trunk, lashed canoes, and skin could have been used for trading and commerce. The reed boat is a common type of watercraft used in West Africa and other parts of the world. Yet there were other boats and ships to add to those already mentioned above. Boats similar to those of Nubia and Egypt were being used in the Sahara just as long or even longer than they were being used in Egypt. In fact, civilization in the Sahara and Sudan existed before Egypt was settled by blacks from the south and the Sahara. The vessels which crossed the Atlantic about 1500 BC during the early Afro-Olmec period were most likely the same types of ships shown in the Sahara cave paintings of ships dating to about 7000 BC, or similar ships from Nubian rock carvings of 3000 BC. Egyptologists such as Sir Flinders Petrie believe that the ancient African drawings of ships represent papyrus boats similar to the one built by the Bambara people for Thor Hierdo on the shores of Lake Chad. This boat made it to Barbados. However, they did not reinforce the hull with rope as the ancient Egyptians and Nubians did with their ancient ships. That lack of reinforcement made Bambara's ship weak. However, another pirate ship built by Ayamara Indians in Lake Titicaca, Bolivia, was reinforced and it made it to the West Indies without difficulty. Naval historian Bjorn Landstrom believes that some of the curved holes shown on rock art and pottery from the Nubian civilization circa 3000 BC point to the basic three-plank idea. The planks would have been sewn together with rope. The, lar- the larger version must have had some interior framing to hold them together. The holds of some of these boats show the vertical extension of the bow and stern, which may have been uh, used to keep the buoyant, them buoyant, which have been used to keep them buoyant. These types of boats are still in use in one of the most unlikely places. The Juka and Saramaka tribes of Suriname, known also as Bush Negroes, build a style of ship and boat similar to that of the ancient Egyptians and Nubians, with their bows and sterns curving upward and pointing vertically. The style of boat is also a common design in parts of West Africa, particularly along the Niger River, where extensive river trading occurs. They are usually carved from a single tree trunk, which is used as the backbone. Planks are then fitted alongside to enlarge them. In all cases, cabins are built on top of the interior out of woven mat or other strong fibrous material fibrous material. These boats are usually 6 to 8 feet across and about 50 feet long. There is evidence that one African emperor, Abu, Abu Bakari of Mali, used these almadias or longboats to make a trip to the Americas during the 1300s. See, they came before Columbus, Ivan Van Sertima, Random House, 1975. Now, I read that that was just a nail in the coffin for those who think that Africans didn't migrate to the landmass of America first. But there was no America when they migrated here. There was no America. It was just a landmass. But we use the word America because you know what it is. Africans were the first to sail here. We brought culture to America. We brought religion to America. We brought civilization to America. You know what I'm saying? The evidence is abundant. You just got to know where to look. You know what I'm saying? And you can't be looking towards the dominant society to give you some real truth. So if you really want to know the truth about your history, man, you got to get down with the movement. You got to live around black people going through some shit as trying to make a difference. And if you around some black folks that are comfortable right now, then you're never going to get what you need in order for you to succeed. You feel me? To truly succeed. And we're talking about having the ability to, live the American dream. And right now, we don't have the ability to live the American dream because we don't have any economic inclusion. So without economic inclusion, how the fuck are we supposed to survive? Real talk. How are we supposed to survive? If we can't contract with certain individuals who have access to capital so that we can have economic inclusion. If we can't contract with those people and those people can turn us down due to racial bias, then how the fuck are we able to sustain as a people if we cannot get any cooperation from those who have, a monopoly over all the necessary resources to survive? I mean, all the land, all the property, the real estate, all the assets. I mean, the stocks in different companies, all of the resources that come from the land, the oil, the minerals. You know what I'm saying? And this is where we're at. We only own 2.6% of all of that, and we make up 13% of the nation. So how the fuck are we supposed to be great? You know what understand? Are we supposed to just live, just keep going as if everything is okay, knowing that we don't have any wealth and that by 2050 we're basically heading to the point to where there's absolutely zero wealth? And y'all want to talk about, oh, now we got Harvard law students now. We got black Harvard law students. Harvard law students ain't gonna do shit about the racial wealth gap. Ain't gonna do shit about that. So if your law students can't do shit about that, then what the fuck can we do as a people politically? You know what I'm saying? To ensure that we have economic inclusion so that we preserve our race. We preserve our special group of people who have built this nation from the ground up. We can take all the credit for it. Real talk. And I'm saying it. We taking all the credit. You feel me? Because we never took the credit that we deserved, and we allowed these people to push this narrative that was false. And these people pumping their chests as if they did something. They didn't do shit, but basically hold black people hostage in their own country, terrorize black people in their own goddamn country, on their own planet. We're not this is not just in America, this is all globally. You know what I'm saying? These people have stolen the wealth that was generated from this nation. And what are they doing? What are they doing with it right now? Fighting amongst each other because they don't know what to do with all the resources. Like, shit, you're supposed to share the fucking resources. You're not hoard them for yourself. These people are buying up resources and investing in properties and shit that they never going to live in. None of that shit. They just buy it up just to own it, just for vacation trips or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I want to go on vacation. I'm gonna go to one of my houses. Like, we got a whole class of people that just buy up everything just to buy shit up, just to you know own up everything so other people can't get in on the business. You feel me? We got businesses that are created to take other businesses out. Like real talk. Like it's a real competitive sport. Business is a competitive sport. You know what I'm saying? We have to look at it. We have to look at it like that. And if we're not competing in the realm of business, we're not competing to live. You feel me? Because it's through this financial system or this monetary system that has us trapped. It has us trapped. You know what I'm saying? And this is something that we definitely can't just make light of, and we can't allow these people to have the 1619 project and and them not having to answer to, well, why the fuck are you speaking for us? Ain't you from a different country? Ain't your parents from a different country? Did you consult with Dr. Claude Anderson before you said that shit? Did you consult with Antonio Moore before you included immigrants into our issues? Oh, another thing they tried to do. Hold on, man, and what they did with this shit. Hold on, let me see if I can find this shit here, because they was tripping. They was tripping. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. I can't find it. I can't find it. They said some shit about Lil Nas X in this motherfucker. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it in the search. Ah, here you go. All right. Watch this shit. It says, now this is talking about the 1619 project. Let me show you how serious they are about this project, right? Critic Wesley Morris also recons with the popularity and legacy of music with its roots in black culture. Morris starts at the origins of yacht rock, struggles with the top pop hits of 2013, and ends with the success of Lil Nas X. Yeah, yeah, nigga, that's what it says. Don't get mad at me. That's what it fucking says. The success of Lil Nas X. What does Lil Nas X have to do with any of this shit? It's just ridiculous, man. These people speaking for us. Crazy. 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 But there you have it, though. There you have it. That's a 1619 project in a nutshell. And I think I went over everything, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? This is just basically the Democrats engaging in benign neglect, and they've expanded the benign neglect policy to basically erase black Americans from their own history. Now, benign neglect is about eradicating the identity of foundational black Americans, the very people who built this nation, very people who built this nation, man. But are we met with appreciation and love and all that? No, 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 no. We're met with more white supremacy, more economical exclusion, more domestic terrorism. And if black leaders don't step up and do what the fuck should have been done years ago, you know what I'm saying? You guys are excommunicado. You guys are excommunicado. We're not afraid to leave you out to dry. We're not afraid to not support you. We're gonna cut you off financially. We ain't gonna support you. We ain't voting for you. We ain't doing none of that shit. Not unless you promise to do something for Black Americans, and not just promise things, to actually meet that promise with fulfillment. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because we got an agenda, and if you ain't about the pro-black agenda right now, if you ain't on a pro-black agenda, then I'm on some hold your own nuts shit. Then hold your own nuts. You ain't got a pro-black agenda, hold your own nuts. I ain't got time to debate with those who don't have a pro-black agenda. And if I do debate with those who don't have a pro-black agenda, I'm doing it so those who are black, who are unsure of a pro-black agenda, they can refer to those debates. You feel me? Which really ain't a debate with me. You know what I'm saying? They're history lessons or debate lessons, really, to show you how to destroy their talking points. If anybody talk about some, oh, Africans were brought here 1619 as slaves and all this other shit, you be sure to tell them there are Africans here long before 1619, long before British settlers. Matter of fact, Spanish settlers were here before the British settlers, and they getting their ass whooped by the Africans, and they drove them out. And even before that, you got historical references to the Folsom people or the Olmec people. You know what I'm saying? I just brought up all those receipts throughout this whole video. You can watch this video all over again. You know what I'm saying? You can see where I got all this shit from. You search it, research it yourself for more confirmation. But I just broke down that whole 1619 project. It's full of shit. It's full of shit. It's full of vague languaging. And if they don't have an agenda attached to it, then what the fuck is the point? To sit there and glorify slavery? Because an anniversary is something that you celebrate. You know what I'm saying? You don't celebrate slavery. You know what I'm saying? We don't have an anniversary for the first day we were slaves. It's very disrespectful. And I don't appreciate anybody who speaks against ADOS or foundational black Americans. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't speak on any other groups plights. You feel me? I don't speak on any other group's plights. Period. I don't go to other countries and demand that they stop practicing white supremacy in other countries. That's how y'all do in y'all home countries. I don't go there and tell y'all how to live in your own country. I don't go there and tell you whether or not you deserve resources ex- exclusive and specific to you or your group. I don't go there and tell you, oh, you shouldn't advocate for reparations for just you. You should advocate for reparations for everybody. I don't do that because I'm not disrespectful. All right. Anyway, that's a mouthful. Man, that's a lot of information. A lot of information. I hope y'all find this informative. And yeah, man, we cracking these heads open. We cracking them heads open. Ain't no room for the black caucus, nothing. Ain't no room for black boule, nothing. We calling you out. You know, we know that all of you guys are silent on the Byron Allen lawsuit with Comcast right now, and not just Comcast, it's with Donald Trump and the DOJ. And nobody's talking about it, including the black leadership. The NAACP ain't said shit. Urban League ain't saying shit. You know what I'm saying? Because they all in on the bullshit. And, Al Sharpton, he in on it too. He in on it too. They gave him little papers so he can undermine the rest of black society. So it's more profitable for them to give him $75,000 a year or so he can be a mascot for white supremacy while they don't do anything for black communities and they keep maximizing the profits that they generate with their corporations. You know what I'm saying? In which they were able to start those corporations with the wealth that blacks generated through free labor. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to, you know, let these corporations and let these white supremacists who own these corporations get off without having to address the debt that is owed to black Americans. And with all that said, I'm done. I said a mouth fucking fool. I've said more than I needed to say, and I've shown more than what I needed to give you the true historical narrative in which, you know, we are pushing. All right, we're pushing the truth here. We're not pushing propaganda. We leave that for mainstream media so that we can break down the codified language so that we know what to expect from these people, which is absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? These people are very good at putting words together, but they're not good at putting policies together. Well, they're good at I take that back. They're great at putting policies together when it's for them. But when they have to put policies that's going to benefit black society, we already see how they get down. Hell, they don't even honor those laws and policies that they make for black society. Affirmative action was supposed to be for black people. They included everybody else, even though everybody else had nothing to do with what black people were bringing to the table. Everybody else didn't have nothing to do with our history. Affirmative action was supposed to be corrective action, you know what I'm saying, for domestic terrorism after slavery. You know what I'm saying? That was for Black Americans. It wasn't for anybody else. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, white women were minorities. Gay white men can be a minority. It's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Brown people, they don't even identify. You can't identify as brown as a race. There is no brown race. There is no such thing as a brown race. So why even use that term, black and brown? There's no such thing as a brown race. Yeah, there's people with brown, you know what I'm saying? But race is not Crayola. Community is not Crayola. All right. But let me know what y'all think of this video, man. Like, comment, share this video. I don't do this shit for clout. Man, I do this shit because I love my people and I want us to succeed. And this is not no shit that you just sit back and see what happens. You feel me? This is not just some shit you just sit back. Well, let me see how this plays out. No. We already know how this is going to play out. We already seen it happen before. Nazi Germany. You know what I'm saying? And this is where we're heading. And if you don't believe that we're heading to Nazi German type of days, let me show you something before I get up off of here. I'm gonna show you one more thing before I get off of here. This is why we advocate for economic inclusion. This is why we advocate for reparations so that we can do for ourselves and we don't have to depend on these white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? By achieving reparations, we get to, take the criminal element out, or at least tremendously lessen the criminal element by giving access to capital to those who have been disenfranchised. There is no need to do crime when you have access to capital. You know what I'm saying? There's no need to commit theft. There's no need to kill anybody or anything. When you have access to capital and resources, you have a reason to live. You have a reason to be a good, upstanding citizen. Why fuck it all up? You know what I'm saying? And it makes me wonder why these white supremacists are so criminal minded when they have all the wealth. How can you be so criminal minded, have all the wealth? And for you to have all that wealth and not share the wealth is criminal in its own right because it creates the criminal element. But anyway, I want to show you this. Not that. Not that. Hold on. Not that. Hold on. Hold on. Man killed by his own captive lions in South Africa. Serves you right, nigga. Can't have no fucking pet lions. Fuck is you talking about? Not unless you African. You know what I'm saying? I believe that Africans are the only group of people who can have some real pet lions and live amongst lions and shit. You know what I'm saying? These Europeans, man, they can't take care of themselves. They can't take care of themselves. The best they can do is dominate something with force. But living with something that in which you dominate, it's crazy, man. That's crazy. Anyway, hold on. Let me show you something. Oh man, let me address this real quick. This meme was surfacing on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? I've been warning people about, these types of promotions, these types of ads, these types of visuals that they were going to put out talking about fight bigotry. You know what I'm saying? And they says 98% of straight men are unwilling to date trans women because of hatred. This has to change. And this is a goddamn lie. You know what I'm saying? There ain't no science to back that up. This is some white supremacy, This is just some fucking propaganda that they put out. There's no truth to this at all. This is just something to basically get people to talk about it. But there's another story that came out where a black dude was killed because, or he was ridiculed and killed because he was dating a transsexual or something like that. So then they have a real story that kind of relates, you know what I'm saying, to kind of generate that conversation and give validity to post such as this. You know what I'm saying? But none of that shit is true. And it's total BS, you know? But that's not what I wanted to show you. This is what I wanted to show you. Now, this was in Fresno. Race soldiers in Fresno conducted a Nazi Gestapo-style raid on an apartment complex under the false pretense of a gang operation and pull innocent black people out of their homes, then start racially abusing a 17-year-old high school student literally for no reason. Understand the seriousness of this video. Race soldiers went to apartments in a black area, started rounding innocent black families up out of their homes, then started beating on people. Understand that this is going to start happening nationwide in the near future. Okay? Now look what's going on. Hold on. Now let's look. Take a look at what's going on. So you got black people dragged out of their homes, sitting outside of their apartments, right? Now tell me a white neighborhood that officers can do this at. Huh? Tell me a white neighborhood that law enforcement can pull up under some gang operation and start rounding up white folks. Nigga, please. Please. And if you think that there is a neighborhood that would, you know, consist of white people getting gaffled up like that, then you are mistaken. You must not know. You must not know where the fuck we at. All right? Now look at all these black people sitting outside their homes. Look at this shit. They don't even know who these people are. They don't even know who these people. They're questioning these people. They don't have warrants for these people. They don't know. That's why they had to ask them for information. They don't know. They just know that they black and they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. Look, he got cleared. He got cleared. Did you see that? Did you see that? Look, they got this dude hemmed up. They checking for him. They checking him for weapons, drugs, blah, blah, blah. So, and this is a 17-year-old boy. This 17-year-old, they checking him. He got cleared. They told him to stand over to the side. He just walked up. He walked off. This cop kind of gave him a dirty look right around. This cop right here kind of gave him a dirty look. He's the one that was checking him. One of the cops checking him. Kind of gave him a little dirty look. Because black dude must have said something like, man, fuck y'all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Of course I ain't got shit. It looked like he said okay or something and just, you know, went about his business. Black dude turned and he was chilling. And here this white Latino guy come out of nowhere. Here's this white Latino officer, race soldier, pulled up on him. You hear that? They said, don't touch him. He went off and stole off on him in the face. Look at this. Comes out of nowhere. See that? Beating them up. But this is police procedure. Bloody in this guy's face all up. Put your hands behind your back. For what? For what? Why ain't they arresting that cop that stole off on him in the face? Now they all gapping them up. All right. I can't watch no more. But you get the point. So while y'all niggas is over here playing with white supremacy, These motherfuckers are going into Nazi German mode. So you better get fucking serious. This shit ain't no game, man. How many times I gotta say this shit? This ain't no game. These motherfuckers are on some Gestapo Nazi German shit. Might as well have Hitler in office. You know what I'm saying? And we not blaming Trump for all the racism. We blaming white supremacists for practicing white supremacy. And white people, if you're not white supremacists and you don't like to be called white supremacists, then why don't you do things to eradicate white supremacy from your own community? Why don't you get rid of the fucking white privilege you have? Stand up for something just. Stand up for something that is more American than you ever would be. How about that? Because y'all motherfuckers are the true immigrants. And y'all over here beating up on foundational black Americans. Shame on you. Shame on you. Just like Willie D said, your daddy should have pulled out, nigga. Your daddy should have pulled out. You ain't shit. You're not doing anything to benefit the human experience. You're doing everything to hinder it. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be representatives of justice. And this is what I mean by white people white people have never did anything that they never done anything as far as like of real true relevance to get rid of the ills of our society, because they are the ills of our society. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we need to get rid of social injustice. Well, how about we get rid of you, motherfucker? Because don't you own goddamn the NFL, or don't you own NFL teams, or don't you own Gucci, or don't you own Louis Vuitton? All y'all motherfuckers is racist. Y'all practice white supremacy. Look at the infrastructure of your corporation. All you hire is white people. All you hire is white folks. You don't hire no black folks. You can't even hire black people. The unemployment rate's still high. Why is it high? I thought we were a powerful country. It's crazy. It's ridiculous, man. I just think we need to wake up and see things for what they are. We need to be more intellectual than what we are showing ourselves to be in particular fields, especially history and politics, because that shit affects us every single day. And I realize that if you don't have a true historical, it don't even have to be true. If you don't have a basis of historical narrative that you can gravitate towards, you're never going to be truly liberated. You're never going to find true purpose. You're never going to find your true meaning of why you're here, why you're in the position where you're in. And I think that's very important. All right. But like I said, I do these videos to reach those who give a fuck. You know what I mean? I don't care if you white, I don't care if you black, I don't care if you Hispanic. I don't care what race you claim to be. I just care about those who care about justice. And yes, I'm thinking about, you know, of course, I'm advocating for reparations specifically for black Americans, because that's what black Americans are owned. But that doesn't mean I don't believe that everybody else who has been oppressed, get their payback. You know what I'm saying? I think that every other African nation who has been subjected to the colonization of the powers that be, as far as Portuguese, the French, the Germans, the Russians, the goddamn the British. I mean, all of those nations. I think African nations, or American nations, African nations, any nation that has been oppressed by, white supremacists, I think that they should get their payback. I think they should get compensated. I I think they should get restitution or reparations, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I believe that everybody should have economic inclusion. I do believe that everybody should have economic inclusion, but we're not going to sit here and play games and say that, well, when things need to be done for Black society specifically, because we're disenfranchised, we're not going to use that opportunity to lift everybody else up. You know what I'm saying? Because that tactic has already been used, and we're seeing the negative effects of it. Now we got immigrants over here undermining our our cause and trying to erase us from our own history. We got black immigrants helping, assisting white supremacists, assisting racist people to destroy our historical narrative. And this is why I do what I do. You know what I mean? And if you feel like, I'm doing us, our people, a good service, then like I said, hit that like button, share it. Make sure you go to oneloveculture.com, get you some fly gear, like you see, I got on here. You dig? Make sure you go to oneloveculture.com. If you haven't been to oneloveculture.com, go ahead, check out the site, man. Black owned business. And if you have been to oneloveculture.com, hey, keep support. I appreciate the support. I ask that you keep supporting the platform. All right. I love y'all. I want to see everybody succeed. I want to see my people especially. I want to see our people succeed. I want us to have economic inclusion. This is what Dr. Martin Luther King died for. This is what Malcolm X died for. This is what Marcus Garvey even died for, economic inclusion. You know what I'm saying? Not with white society, but he was talking about, linking up with, back to the homeland, to the motherland, Africa, so that we can galvanize, so we can circle our wagons and we can get our resources up. And he understood that shit. We got to get a majority of our resources from Africa anyway. Why don't we just go back to the motherland and link up with the Africans over there and create a unstoppable force? You know what I'm saying? And that's what Marcus Garvey was on. You feel me? But yeah, that's what we're trying to do, man. We're just trying to make a way out of no way. You know what I'm saying? We know that we've been disenfranchised, and this is what we have to use to speak truth to power. You know what I'm saying? So love y'all. All right, said a mouthful. I'm gonna holler at you later. Y'all be cool. All right, it's your boy 100, and I'm out. Peace.